I'm going to give you 3 examples. I'm going to give you a rhetorical device without pauses, then with pauses, and then with filler sounds. Listen to the difference in these 3. Did you know that every single decision you've ever made in your entire life and you will make for the rest of your life is based on one thing and one thing only, and that is an emotion? If you keep that emotion, the people listening, they will take the decision you want them to take. My coach comes in and says, volume okay, pace a bit too high, but your pauses, they suck. And I say, can I go again? And he says, yes. So the only thing I'm going to change now is the pause. This is the next. Did you know that every single decision you've ever taken in your entire life and you will take for the rest of your life is based on one thing and one thing only? And that is an emotion. If you give that emotion to the people listening to you, they will take the decisions you want them to take. Is there a difference? Big difference. Now listen to what a lot of people do. They add filler sounds because they don't feel confident or because they haven't really, I guess, figured out that they use them. So listen to this example. Did you know that every single then that is an emotion. If you give that emotion to the people listening, they will take the decisions you want them to take. Is there a difference? And it will impact how you feel, and it will impact how you are perceived. So my tip to you is this: get rid of your filler sounds. I can promise you that you can get rid of them within 8 weeks. How? There are 3 steps. Number 1, get a friend to snap their fingers every time you use a filler sound. Okay? Bam, 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 bam. Every time you use a filler sound, bam, your friend snaps their fingers. Okay? Now you become conscious. Number 2, you have to replace the behavior. It's easier for the brain to replace the behavior than remove the behavior. So my suggestion to you, what I've been coaching people to do, is inhale instead of exhale. So instead of going, you go, you don't go, you just softly go, and then you carry on. If you do this consistently for 8 weeks in your private life, when you're fetching coffee, when you're at the store, when you're with your family, you will get rid of 95% of all your filler sounds, and you will seem more confident in all your negotiations and presentations and pitches. Cool? Cool?
Cuando está hablando con una persona y nada, se me dice nada. Eso me dice no durante la semana.
Hours ago. Isn't it beautiful? Right? That's rehabilitated to your group? Yes. Incredible. It's got 36 rooms, it's 1,000 square meters, it's built in 1796. And I want to give you an insight into what made me buy this place. Because when I got Shining. Have you seen the movie Shining? The 2 twins? Wherever I went, like every corridor, I thought I saw them. It was horrible. I didn't want to move there. I did not want to move there. But my real estate agent was brilliant at one thing, and that was telling stories. So she told stories about the history of this place, how 2 kings of Sweden had lived there. She told stories about the future, about how my cinema could look, where I could build that. When she told me the stories about the future and the stories about the past, she convinced me to buy it. And today, it's the biggest dream, the best house I could ever own. So I thank her for being able to tell me stories in order to believe in what's possible and what has been. And that is a big part of your profession, is telling stories, right? I would say that what would happen if you weren't able to sell dreams? What would happen? What would happen if you weren't able or allowed to tell those stories? It would collapse very, very frequently. So storytelling is an absolutely fundamental part of your work. And I would argue to say that it is the most powerful skill in sales. And I want to give you an insight into that. I want to take you back to 2000. And the jacket that Michael Jackson was wearing in the Thriller. Do you remember that jacket? It's a nice jacket, right? But is it worth $1.5 million? An identical jacket in a thrift shop, maybe what will you pay for that? That somebody slept in, they've been hangover in, they've been sweating in. How much would you pay for that? Nothing. You should have to pay you to wear it, right? How can this be worth absolutely nothing, but the same or an identical jacket be worth $1.5 million? Because Michael Jackson is just a story to you. Your story is different from your story. You don't know him personally. Your story of Michael Jackson is based on what you've heard about him, what you've read about him, documentaries, when you listen to his music. He is a story. Imagine that if you take a story, attach it to a jacket, it increases its value by monumental levels. And if you're selling real estate and you can tell a story that a famous person lived there, will you say that increases its value? Yes. Because you borrow a story from something to increase the value of an object. So Rob thought to himself, how powerful is this? How powerful is storytelling? So he decided to see a study called the Significant Object Study. When he walked over to eBay, he bought 200 random objects. Okay, just random. They were supposed to cost around $1 each. One of the objects was this horse's head. Isn't it beautiful? Do you want this? Like, ooh, the cravings for this horse's head. Probably made by a 7th grader, painted by a 6th grader, right? This horse's head cost 99 cents to buy on eBay for a walker. He bought 200 similar objects. He calls up an author and he says, hey, can you write me a story to one of the objects? And the author said, absolutely, I'd love to write a story. And then he called up another 199 authors. And at the end of the day, he had 200 stories to 200 objects. 200 stories to 200 objects. And it was time to publish the objects again. He goes onto eBay, and I assume it's with nail-biting anticipation that he publishes them, right? He spent a lot of time on this. Would there be a difference? Do you think there's a difference? But how? They're only stories. The pictures were the same. Would there be a difference? And how big would the difference be? Is it small, big, massive? It's huge. This horse's head was sold for $62.95. And if you're quick in maths, which I think you are, you know that that is a slight value increase of 6,258%. 6,258% based on what? Just a story. Nothing else. So then you ask yourself, well, what happened to the other 199 objects? Well, in total, the 200 objects were purchased for $129 and sold for $8,000. The study has been replicated 4 times with equal and similar results. A story can increase the perception of the value of an object immensely. If I were to ask you, and this is a key takeaway from me, this is one of the most important things I'll give you today. Like, how many stories do you have in your head about property? How many stories? Your answer to me, among those who I coach, would say, I have 20, maybe 30 good stories. That's not true. You have 200 stories. You just don't know it. And the way to know it is to write down every single time you tell a client a story. Every time. If it's 10 seconds, if it's 20 seconds, if it's a 30-second story, it doesn't matter. Every time you tell a story, write it down so that you have it. Because by that story, you increase the value of another apartment. But you'll forget that you have it if you don't write it down. This will become one of your most powerful sales tools. Write down your stories because they increase the value of objects. Has any one of you been to James Bond? Watched that in the movies or something like that? Have you watched action movies? Yeah? It is super interesting to see. It's almost more interesting sitting outside of the movies. I love studying body language. I can sit outside of the movies and I can tell you who watched James Bond movies. Because they walk differently when they come out in the movies. You're like... You can literally see their entire stance has changed from before the movie to after the movie. This is because testosterone is increased when we watch action hero movies. And we can see them walk and move, and some people, they don't forget this, so the next day they're walking to work and they're going, still walking like James Bond. And then they look down and they go, oh my God, isn't that, and they're at the watchmaker, and they see the same watch that James Bond was wearing in the movie, right? And they go like, oh my God, isn't that an Omega Seamaster? It's the same one that James Bond was wearing. Oh my God, I need it. I need to have it. I want to feel like James Bond, right? And then they look, what does that cost? Oh, only $15,000 to tell time. $15,000 to tell time. I'm not insulting you. Some of you may have Omegas and you're like, I didn't buy that because of James Bond, and I didn't buy that. But I promise you this, you bought it because of the story. You bought it because of the history of whatever who created that watch. So, stories can increase the value of objects in an immense way. And I want to give you a couple of key takeaways on how to build good stories. Look at this. This is a neurosubstance you all have in your brain, and it makes you feel, listen very carefully, it makes you feel desire. It makes you want things. This is the primary substance to why people buy property. If they don't feel that, they don't want the property. How do you know that you've created this in the person that you're talking to? They have a spark in their eye, they have a hunger in their face, they have a desire in their voice. Have you ever heard that? Absolutely. You have that as a real estate, created dopamine in the other person. See, there's one small problem with dopamine though, and that is that it goes down after about 4 to 5 days. So you may have to remind them of how amazing the object was, otherwise it will dip and they'll look at another object. So about 4 to 5 days, you have to increase dopamine again. 4 to 5 days, you have to. The more often you can do it, the more dopamine you can create, the more desire you will make, and then, well, after a while, they'll go mad or insane if they can't sign the contract. So dopamine is a key core element. It creates these 4 things. Look at them. Look at them. Are these important in your clients? Yes or no? Yes. Yes or no? Yes. Absolutely. If you leave a meeting and you have not created that, have you failed? Absolutely. The question is, what does dopamine feel like? I'm going to show you a video of a woman. Her name is Susan Boyle. Have you seen this video before? Has she got an amazing singing voice? Okay. So she was in British Got Talent. Nobody believed in her. When she starts singing, she blows everybody away. So what I want to do now is I want to create dopamine in your brain. Okay? And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to show you this clip. On YouTube, I have loads of dopamine clips. So what I'm just wanting you to do now is lean back, observe, enjoy, and feel the dopamine flow. And you need to be warned, because it will feel amazing.